There's only one time you look handsomer than you do now, and that's when you wear a tuxedo.
Oh, yes. I think a tuxedo is the best-looking thing a man can wear.
Everyone remembers Lucille Ball, but what about the woman who stood right beside her, laughing, crying, and holding the show together? Vivian Vance played Ethel Mertz, Lucy's best friend on I Love Lucy, but behind the jokes and applause, her real life was filled with secrets, pain, and one final confession before she passed. For years, Vivian stayed silent about what really happened on set, how she truly felt about the cast, and what I Love Lucy did to her off-screen life. Before she died, she revealed the truth, and it shocked everyone. Join us as we take a closer look at Vivian Vance's story and uncover the truth behind her role and legacy. A small-town girl with big dreams. Vivian Vance was born in Cherryvale, Kansas. She was the second of 6 kids in her family. When she was 6 years old, her family moved to a town called Independence, also in Kansas. That's where her love for acting began. At Independence High School, she studied drama with a teacher named Anna Engelman. But things weren't easy at home. Her mother had very strong religious beliefs, and she didn't think acting was a good path. Vivian disagreed. She was so passionate about performing that she started sneaking out at night, going out even after curfew. She didn't want to be held back. That's when she changed her last name to Vance and moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico to chase her acting dream. She performed in the very first show at the Albuquerque Little Theater in 1930. Vivian stayed busy there, acting in several plays like This Thing Called Love and The Cradle Song. The local theater crowd loved her so much that they helped pay for her to go to New York City to study acting under a famous teacher, Eva Le Gallienne. It was a big step forward, but as we'll see, it was only the beginning. Making it on Broadway and the big screen. Vivian's New York journey started in 1932. At first, she was just part of the chorus in Broadway shows. But over time, she worked her way up to better roles. One of her early breaks was when she was chosen as the backup for Ethel Merman in Anything Goes. Years later, she and Merman even appeared together in an episode of The Lucy Show. In 1937, Vivian took over from Kay Thompson in the musical Hooray for What? But her biggest success on stage came in 1941. She played Nancy Collister in Cole Porter's musical Let's Face It. The show was a hit and ran for 547 performances. She acted alongside stars like Danny Kaye, Edith Meiser, and Eve Arden. After that, Vivian set her eyes on film. In 1947, she moved to California to try new things in theater and explore film roles. She landed 2 movie parts, not big ones, but important for her career. In The Secret Fury, 1950, she played a smart chambermaid named Leah. In The Blue Veil, 1951, she played a character named Alicia. Critics said she did a good job, but the films didn't really make her a movie star. Years later, after leaving The Lucy Show, she got a chance to be in The Great Race, 1965, a comedy directed by Blake Edwards. Vivian hoped it would give her film career a fresh start. The movie did okay and got some Oscar nominations, but sadly, it didn't open new doors for her in Hollywood. Finding fame as Ethel Mertz on I Love Lucy. In 1951, Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball were working on their new TV show, I Love Lucy. They needed someone to play Ethel Mertz, the neighbor and landlady. The director, Mark Daniels, suggested Vivian. He had seen her act in a play before. At first, Lucille Ball wasn't sure. She wanted one of her close friends, Bea Benaderet or Barbara Pepper, for the role. But Benaderet was already busy with another show, and Pepper had some personal problems. So Vivian got the part. She was 42 years old when she started playing Ethel. Ethel Mertz was the landlady of the apartment building where Lucy and Ricky Ricardo lived. Her husband on the show, Fred Mertz, was played by William Frawley. Frawley was 22 years older than Vivian. Even though their on-screen chemistry was amazing, off-screen they had problems. Frawley once overheard Vivian saying he was too old to play her husband. She thought he looked more like her father. After that, things were tense. Vivian would check the scripts to see how many scenes she had to do with that stubborn-headed little Irishman, as she once called him. Still, audiences loved them together, and the show was a huge hit. In 1953, Vivian became the first actress to win an Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress. She accepted her award in 1954 and was nominated 3 more times during the show's run. When I Love Lucy changed to the hour-long The Lucy Desi Comedy Hour in 1957, Desi offered Vivian and Frawley their own spin-off show. He wanted to keep the Fred and Ethel story going. Frawley was excited, but Vivian said no. She didn't want to work so closely with Frawley. Plus, she thought their characters wouldn't work well without Lucy and Ricky. Her decision made Frawley even more upset with her. Instead of the spin-off, Vivian tried to create her own show. She filmed a pilot for a show called Guestward Ho, based on a rich New Yorker who moves to New Mexico. But CBS didn't pick it up. Later, the show was reworked with a different actress, but it only lasted one season. Still, Vivian continued playing Ethel until the very end. Life after Lucy. In 1962, Lucille Ball was ready to return to TV with a new show called The Lucy Show. She asked Vivian to join her again. Vivian agreed, but with some conditions. She wanted her character to be named Vivian, not Ethel. By now, she was tired of strangers calling her Ethel in real life. She also wanted to wear nicer clothes on the show. Lucille agreed, and they became co-stars again. After a few seasons, Vivian left the show, but she still made guest appearances with Lucille on TV. She showed up on Here's Lucy a few times between 1968 and 1974. In 1973, life took a painful turn. Vivian was diagnosed with breast cancer. During this time, she took a deal to promote Maxwell House Coffee. She appeared in many of their commercials over the next few years. She also acted in several made-for-TV movies like The Front Page, 1970, Getting Away from It All, 1972, and The Great Houdini, 1976. In 1975, she appeared in an episode of the TV show Rhoda. One of her last big moments on TV came in 1977, when she reunited with Lucille Ball for a CBS special called Lucy Calls the President. It was their final appearance together. Their friendship, despite the ups and downs, had lasted decades. Vivian Vance had gone from a small-town girl in Kansas to one of the most beloved faces in television. But the road wasn't always easy. Her time on I Love Lucy gave her fame, but it also brought struggles, both on-screen and off. A young girl with a forbidden dream. You see, Vivian Vance didn't grow up in a family that supported her dreams. She was one of 6 children raised in a deeply religious home. From a young age, she felt drawn to acting, but her mother didn't approve at all. She believed acting was sinful and told Vivian that becoming an actress meant trying to lead men into sin and that she'd go to hell. But Vivian didn't listen. She wanted more for her life. So as a teenager, she packed up and moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was there, at the Albuquerque Little Theater, that she finally got her chance to be on stage. In 1930, she began performing in local plays, and by 1932, she had made such a big impression that the local newspaper wrote, "It was Vivian Vance's night." She was applauded the moment she stepped on stage and called stunning in her performance. Her time in New Mexico opened doors. Friends and supporters from the theater helped raise money so she could go to New York and try her luck on Broadway. Her journey was just getting started. New York City wasn't easy. Vivian worked hard but didn't find success right away. She sang in nightclubs and danced in chorus lines just to survive. In 1942, she explained to the Herald News that breaking into Broadway was no cinch, but she didn't give up. Her first real break came in a show called Hooray for What? She got the part with just 7 hours' notice. Later, she landed roles in Skylark and Out From Under, which the critics liked. All of that slowly helped her build a name for herself. During these years, she also became friends with Ethel Mertz, a big star on Broadway. Vance became her understudy in the musical Anything Goes. Merman saw real talent in Vivian and even called her a protege. They worked together again in Red, Hot and Blue in 1936. Their friendship helped Vivian rise on stage, and soon she was cast in musicals and plays where she had leading roles. One of those was The Voice of the Turtle, where she played a difficult, dramatic character. But during that time, something inside her broke. Vivian had a nervous breakdown. According to historian Jeffrey Mark, her strict father had made her scared of men. Vivian once said, "I was so afraid of men that I spent my life hiding underneath them." Because of that fear, she only married gay men. Her breakdown forced her to step away from the spotlight. For a while, she stopped performing and only came back to small theater roles around 1950. She also did 2 small film roles in The Secret Fury and The Blue Veil. It was her way of slowly returning to acting, but she was about to land the role that would change everything, becoming Ethel and facing the backstage drama. In the early 1950s, Vivian was performing the voice of the turtle in La Jolla, California. At the same time, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were casting actors for their new TV show, I Love Lucy. They went to see Vivian in the play, and they were so impressed that they signed her to play Ethel Mertz right during the show's intermission. Ethel was the landlord and friend of Lucy Ricardo, played by Lucille Ball. It was a role that brought Vivian fame, but it came with its own drama. On her first day of rehearsal, Vivian saw William Frawley, who had been cast to play Fred Mertz, her on-screen husband. She didn't know who he was and asked, "Who's that old coot sitting over there?" Desi told her, "That's William Frawley. He's going to play your husband, honey." Vivian replied, "Husband? He could play my grandfather." Unfortunately, Frawley overheard that, and from that moment on, he disliked her deeply. He never forgave her. The writers even started using that tension in the scripts. It added realism to their on-screen fights, but behind the scenes, their relationship never improved. Things weren't smooth with Lucille Ball at first either. When Lucille met Vivian, she was shocked by how similar they looked. Same age, same hair color, even a similar figure. Lucille told her, "You can't play Ethel. You're the same age I am. You have the same color hair. You have an attractive figure. You're pretty." Vivian was quick on her feet. She asked, "What does Ethel Mertz look like?" Lucille said, "She's overweight and she has bleached blonde hair with a frizzy, permanent and dark roots and wears tacky clothes." Vivian simply nodded and said, "It's Monday. I can't give you that for Friday, but next Friday I can give you that." And she did. By the next week, she had completely transformed into Ethel. It was that commitment that won Lucille over and helped make the show a success. As I Love Lucy took off, Vivian Vance became a household name. But behind the laughter, she was still battling her past, the pain that stayed. She never forgot her father's control or the pain from her early breakdown. And though she brought so much joy to the screen, her private life wasn't as happy. She continued to act and made her name known across the country, but her relationship with William Frawley remained cold. The moment she called him old on day one had stuck with him, and it never went away. Even though their characters became one of TV's most iconic couples, the truth was far from it. But what hurt even more was that Vivian often felt stuck in her role. People saw her as Ethel and nothing else. It was hard for her to break away from that image. Despite that, she kept acting and kept pushing herself. In the end, Vivian Vance was much more than Ethel Mertz. She was a strong woman who had overcome a strict upbringing, a deep fear of men, a nervous breakdown, and years of backstage tension. And still, she made millions laugh. Speaking of which, while Vivian Vance may have played a comic sidekick on I Love Lucy, in real life, she took the work seriously. She loved the work, even when it was tough. The show ran for 6 seasons and the schedule was tough. Long hours, lots of rehearsals, and always something new to learn. She once said, "It's an actor's dream. You do the same character, but you don't have the boredom of reading the same lines week after week as on the stage." What made it even more exciting for her was the live audience. She said, "We also have what the movies lack, an audience to stimulate you." The laughs and cheers kept her going. When I Love Lucy ended in 1956, the team continued with 13 one-hour specials called the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, which aired until 1960. 2 years after that, Lucille Ball started The Lucy Show, and Vivian joined her again. This time, Vivian played a new character named Vivian Bagley. She was different from Ethel. This character was stronger, smarter, and more confident. Jeffrey Mark, a pop culture expert, said, "She's much more secure, she's more confident, she's got a boyfriend, she's much smarter, she's nobody's fool, and she doesn't suffer quite as much with Miss Ball's antics. She puts up more of a fight." Vivian herself was happy about the role and said in 1962, "We're a couple of good, honest performers, and we work well together. That's not being immodest. I like to watch us work together as a member of the audience." She added, "Television is like an X-ray. The audience gets the feeling we like each other." But even with all that joy on screen, trouble wasn't far behind. A misunderstanding that changed everything. Even though Vivian and Lucille had great chemistry on camera, their time on The Lucy Show came to an end too soon. A problem during contract talks led to confusion. The person handling the business side gave Lucille the wrong impression. She thought Vivian was demanding too much money or special treatment. Lucille refused to negotiate, and as a result, Vivian left the show. It was a sad time for both of them. Jeffrey Mark said, "It took about a year for the hurts to heal, but eventually the pain faded." Vivian came back later as a guest star, not just on The Lucy Show, but on other Lucille Ball programs too. Their friendship stayed strong. They realized the truth. "We let these businessmen put a wedge between us that never should have been there." Even though their working relationship hit a rough patch, the respect and love between them didn't disappear. They understood each other. Vivian knew how talented Lucille was, and Lucille appreciated everything Vivian brought to the screen. And even when the cameras stopped rolling, they remained close. Hard goodbyes and honest truths. As the years went on, Vivian kept appearing in small roles. She made guest appearances on Here's Lucy, which aired from 1968 to 1974. But things slowed down in a big way after she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1973. Her health took a toll, and acting wasn't her main focus anymore. Still, she stayed active when she could. She appeared on Rhoda and in the TV movies The Front Page and Getting Away from It All. In 1977, she and Lucille were seen together one last time in a CBS special called Lucy Calls the President. That was Vivian's final role. Even when she looked back at her early days on I Love Lucy, Vivian had deep respect for what they created. She once said, "There was no boss on that set. He would have been trampled by the crowd." Everyone on the team had a voice. Everybody was allowed to have his say at every conference. We rehearsed 3 days, then sat in a room sometimes until 4 a.m. and fought out every word, every scene. She also spoke about how real their friendship was. "Lucille had more ambition than I had and made me work harder than I ever wanted to work. She pulled me along and taught me a lot of things I was too lazy to do. And she never forgot how much they balanced each other. One balances the other," she said. That was the heart of their bond. They made the routines look effortless, but behind the scenes, it took hours and hours of work. "Lucille and I always wanted our routines to look like we were doing them for the first time," Vivian explained. "But we might have done that routine for 72 hours before we got it right." That was the kind of dedication Vivian brought to her craft. Quiet, funny, honest, and always full of heart. That kind of hard work made her unforgettable on screen. But behind the scenes, there were still stories people got wrong. Over the years, many myths followed Vivian Vance, especially about how she looked and lived. She was more than Ethel Mertz. Many people believed that Vivian Vance had to be unattractive to play Ethel Mertz on I Love Lucy, but that wasn't true. Jeffrey Mark, a pop culture historian, explained that it was never in her contract to look plain or dull. Vivian was actually known for her beauty and charm. To play Ethel, she bleached her hair but left dark roots showing. She wore no false eyelashes and avoided glamour makeup. Her costumes were made a size too small, even her shoes and underclothes. This made her walk look awkward, but it was all done for the character, not because someone forced her. Vivian agreed to it because it was right for the role. Another common myth is that she and Lucille Ball hated each other, but the truth is they became very close. The idea that they fought came from a joke Vivian once made. Early on, someone said to her, "Lucille is hard to work with." And Vivian replied, "If this thing is a success, I'm going to learn to love that B.A." And she did. There was also a funny moment when Lucille was pregnant. She had a dressing room on the stage. Vivian was late for a scene and Lucille snapped at her. Vivian jokingly said, "I would tell you to go FK yourself, but I see your husband's already taken care of that." Lucille laughed. But those two comments got twisted over the years into false stories about them hating each other. In reality, they were true friends. Lucille knew her worth. At first, Lucille Ball didn't realize how much talent Vivian Vance brought to the show, but over time, that changed. Jeffrey Mark said that as more episodes were filmed, Lucille began to see the magic that happened when Lucy and Ethel shared the screen. That's why Ethel's role grew bigger as the show went on. The bond between Lucy and Ethel became just as strong as the one between Lucy and Ricky. Many also believed that Vivian was unknown before I Love Lucy, but that wasn't true either. She had been in show business since the late 1920s. She had been a nightclub singer, and she was already a big name on Broadway. She was Ethel Merman's understudy in two Cole Porter musicals. By the early 1940s, she was starring in her own Broadway shows. Vivian Vance was not new to acting when she joined the sitcom. Another rumor was that Vivian's marriages ended because she had mental problems. But Jeffrey Mark explained that the truth was more painful. Most of the men she married were bi and not deeply in love with her. Some used her for fame or money. Vivian's last marriage ended only because her husband passed away, but the earlier ones broke her heart. She often found herself alone, wondering why her partners didn't want to stay home and build a real life with her. Her past left deep scars. Many people believe that the stress of acting caused Vivian to have a nervous breakdown, but that's not what happened. Jeffrey Mark said that her emotional troubles started much earlier. Her father had a controlling nature and made her afraid of men. Vivian once said, "I was so afraid of men that I spent my life hiding underneath them." Because of this, she only married gay or men. She had her breakdown while starring in a play called The Voice of the Turtle in 1945. The role was a big deal, and she was already a respected star, but the emotional pain was too much. After her breakdown, she stopped acting. It wasn't until 1950 that she slowly returned to the stage, doing smaller regional shows to rebuild her confidence. Around this time, she also tried working in movies. She acted in The Secret Fury and The Blue Veil. These roles helped her get back into acting, but it was clear that her personal trauma had left a mark. Still, she never gave up on her career. Another myth is that she spent the rest of her life trying to profit off her role as Ethel, but that couldn't be further from the truth. She didn't even want to play a similar role again. When she joined The Lucy Show, she did so only after a lot of convincing. She didn't like being seen only as Ethel. During an interview with Hugh Downs, when he asked what she would do if he introduced her as Ethel Mertz, she said, "I would have walked off the show. I'm not Ethel Mertz. I'm an actress named Vivian Vance. That's one part of many that I've played in my life." The personal struggles behind the spotlight. Vivian Vance was married 4 times in her life, but only the last one lasted. Her first 3 marriages ended in divorce. One of those was to actor Philip Ober, and they stayed married for 18 years. But their relationship wasn't happy. People around them said Ober was jealous of Vivian's success. Some even said he was physically abusive toward her. In 1961, Vivian found love again. She married John Dodds, a literary agent and publisher. This time, things were different. They moved to Stamford, Connecticut, and later to California in 1974. Vivian and John stayed together until the end of her life. Despite all the love she brought to the screen behind closed doors, Vivian had to fight through pain and broken relationships. But even in her final years, she had someone by her side who truly cared for her. Illness ended what could have been a new start. Some fans believed that Vivian turned down more acting chances later in life, like becoming a recurring character on Rhoda. But the truth is, she didn't reject the role, she was just too sick. She guest-starred in an episode called Friends and Mothers. In that episode, she played a character who stood up to Rhoda's mom and brought a fresh energy to the show. People thought it might lead to something more, but Vivian's health was getting worse. In the early 1970s, she was diagnosed with cancer. She fought hard and managed to recover for a while, but later she developed Bell's palsy, a condition that affects the muscles in the face. Her body couldn't handle the pressure of regular acting work anymore. She still showed up when she could, but it wasn't easy. She had the talent, she had the experience, but her health held her back. Still, Vivian's love for acting and her respect for the people she worked with never faded. One of her most powerful quotes came when she talked about "I Love Lucy" and the effort they put in. "Lucille and I always wanted our routines to look like we were doing them for the first time," she said. "But we might have done that routine for 72 hours before we got it right." That's how hard she worked. And behind all the myths and stories, that's the truth people should remember. Vivian Vance was more than Ethel Mertz. She was a professional, a fighter, and a woman who left a real mark on television history. A farewell filled with love and legacy. Vivian Vance passed away on August 17, 1979, at the age of 70. She died from breast cancer that had spread through her body. Her death hit those who knew her hard. Desi Arnaz said, "It's bad enough to lose one of the great artists we had the honor and the pleasure to work with. but it's even harder to reconcile the loss of one of your best friends. After her passing, her family donated her Emmy Award to the Albuquerque Little Theater, the very place where her acting journey had started. Years later, Lucille Ball shared how much she loved watching reruns of I Love Lucy. She said, "I find that now I usually spend my time looking at Viv. Viv was sensational," Lucille added. "She was something." In 1991, Vivian was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Her name was placed at 7030 Hollywood Boulevard. She was also remembered at the Lucille Ball Desi Arnaz Center in New York. In 2010, a collection of her personal photos, scrapbooks, and even an unpublished autobiography were found after John Dodds passed away. In 2012, she and William Frawley were inducted into the Television Academy Hall of Fame. Her story was also brought to the stage in 2018 in I Love Lucy. A funny thing happened on the way to the sitcom, written by the son of the show's creator, and her role was portrayed on screen twice, first in 1991 and again in 2021 in Being the Ricardos. Vivian may be gone, but the love and laughter she gave the world still lives on. What surprised you the most about Vivian Vance's life behind the scenes? Do you think she got the credit she truly deserved beyond her role as Ethel Mertz? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.